All right, we are back here on the podcast. NBA season coming up next week. Big expectations of the Knicks, who are probably one of the two co-favorites to win the Eastern Conference, build on their success from last year, and as it gets to the NBA Finals the first time since 1999. Joining me today to help preview the Knicks season, great friend of the podcast. He covers the team for Klutch Points. Kris Pursianen is back with us. Kris, welcome. How are you?
Hey, thanks so much for having me, man. I'm good, and I'm keeping busy. I appreciate the kind words. I love all your shows, everything you do, whether it's Star Wars or basketball, as we talked about before. I know you just had a nice hockey episode come out too. So always a fan of what you do. Always glad to be part of it. And grateful you have me back. Sometimes it's like Jamal Adams. Like let's see if I scan in today. So appreciate being back.
Yeah, I appreciate you scanning in today to be ready for the Knicks pod here. And right now, obviously, the big change to the Knicks here, obviously, at head coach. After last year, the surprise that they move on from Tom Thibodeau, they had the very weird, protracted search where they basically asked everybody's existing head coach they wanted to coach them, and they got nowhere with that. They ended up settling on Mike Brown as their coach here. And obviously, you've been to some of the Knicks practices. You've been at the press conference with Mike Brown. What do you think about what the Knicks are getting with him?
Um, I think that's a great question because I think so much of the discourse has been about what he'll be able to do to be Tom, or like I gotta figure out who asked him how he plans to like respect and honor Tom's legacy in his tenure. Like what are we doing? I jokingly tweeted after their first preseason win. I was like it was a nice win for the Knicks today. They start their 2026 campaign out with a preseason W. Unfortunately, the league office will be vacating the win because Mike Brown did not kneel on the baseline after the game and send a quick prayer to Tom Thibodeau. The framing of this all has been bizarre. They hired a professional coach to come in and coach a professional basketball team. He values a couple of things really highly. Defense is one of them. It's why he was the defensive coordinator of the Golden State Warriors under Steve Kerr for several years. Another one of the things he really values is ball movement, which lends into him valuing pace as well. He thinks that you should control what you can control. You cannot control another team making every three they take. You cannot control a player pulling up from half court and making every shot. You can control the condition you're in. You can control the effort you give. You can control the principles that you follow or that you default to in moments of indecisiveness or uncertainty. You can control your effort throughout a game. And sometimes if your body gives out on you, then that's going to happen. But you can control how close your body is to giving out on you by working out, by keeping your legs fresh. Like he values a set of things that I think the Knicks also value. And they brought him in to enforce those values and hold players accountable to those values. And you're seeing drastic change early on with regard to even just how the offense is being spoken about. Mike Brown has told you very clearly, basically looking into the camera and telling you when it gets to be crunch time, you know who's going to have the ball. You know he wears number 11, and you know what he does in those moments. But before that, Tom always used to talk about the 46-minute report. In the 46-minute report, not in the last 2-minute report, in the 46 minutes leading up to that crunch time, are they doing everything they can to make life as easy as possible for Jalen Brunson, for Karl Anthony Towns, or are they hoping that these guys are so good that they can overcome whatever challenges are set out in front of them to the effect of eventually winning the ball game? I think the Knicks view that as unnecessary. I think they viewed it as asking the landlord to raise your rent to motivate you to work harder. And I think they figured, what if we just stopped doing this? And so it didn't mean that they had three first dates scheduled before breaking up with their current girlfriend. They just said, we don't think we're meant for each other. We don't think this is going to go all the way. So let's save our time and end things now so that we can both start finding a better match.
Yeah.
That's what they're going to get is a professional coach who values defense, pace, ball movement, fresh legs, and effort and energy and attitude.
Yeah,
All sounds good to me.
It does sound good to me too, as somebody who felt like the Knicks tend to get stuck in the mud offensively a little bit towards the end of the Thibodeau era here. And I think the curious thing on Mike Brown here is that obviously, like, he's known as a defensive guy, but obviously we saw in his time in Sacramento the Kings were one of the most efficient offenses in the league. And you figure you gotta pick some things up from Steve Kerr when he's working under the Warriors here. So like obviously you're limited by the personnel you had, but like I think there are opportunities to make the Knicks more dynamic offensively, for Brown King suggest.
Yeah, I think, Towns is a different player than Sabonis. Brunson is a different player than Fox. But you also can't help but see some of the similarities, right? I think the Knicks 3 through 10 is what really makes them different from those Kings teams, right? Keegan Murray did an incredible job in his rookie season of being an integral part of that team. The Knicks have both Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. Like that, that is different, right? So Mike Brown is someone who's liked OG for a while. Um, Mike Brown's Kings were interested in OG Anunoby. I think I broke that news back when that was a thing. That like the Kings were interested, the Knicks were interested, calling the Raptors about OG. I may have been first to report that. I don't even know anymore. But like Mike Brown's been interested in this dude for years. Now he gets to coach him, and he gets to coach Jalen Brunson. There's a clip of from one of the preseason games of Jalen just operating in the mid range, in the pick and roll, getting to the rim, finishing at the basket. And Brown kind of just puts his arm around Rick Brunson and is like, whew, like he's excited to work with these guys. He's excited to coach this team. But I do think the notion that he can just come in and pluck some low-hanging fruit and then they'll win a championship is misguided. I think what he needs to do is set his foundation, make clear what he values, instill and install his principles into the team and the offense and the defense, and then see what happens after that. So, like anything new, it's going to take some time to evaluate, but all early signs are both that everything he's saying is right and that he's not just saying things to say them. He's actually installing the changes that he wants to see.
Yeah, it's good to see that here. And obviously, one of his big decisions he has to make here is the starting lineup because last year you knew the five basically for the whole season was the Brunson, Hart, OG, Bridges, Towns starting five. That unit got worse as the season went on. Thibodeau switched mid playoffs. Mitchell Robinson, that group was with side of Hart that was slightly better. It hasn't been clear from me from what I've seen from the outside. I'm sure you're more tapped in, like where they're leaning for a starting five here. Like, how do you feel this situation could go here with the starting five?
I think before the news of Josh Hart's finger re-aggravation came out, it was going to be Mitchell Robinson as the fifth starter. I don't think that that was like why Brown was hired to be the coach. I do think it's something Brown discussed with them that made them like him, was that he was willing to start out with the lineup that they kind of had to pull teeth to get Thibodeau to play. Um, I had it being Mitchell Robinson as the fifth starter behind Brunson, Bridges, Anunoby, and Towns. Um, and then Josh Hart showing up to media day with a golf ball inside of his ring finger uh, didn't help his case to be a starter. I think Josh Hart is someone that people should just keep tabs on as a potential sixth man of the year award winner. I think he has a chance at that award the way that, I'm not saying the 100 players that have a chance. I'm saying he would be on my list of maybe 10 or 15 players most likely to win that award. But that said, I think he'll be eligible for that award because he'll be coming off the bench. Of course, excluding any injury or barring any injury to someone like Anunoby or Bridges, that would catapult him right in there.
Yeah, good. Yeah, that's good. And I figured that was the direction they're going here. And obviously, they've worked hard on building a deeper bench here. We knew last year was sort of seven deep until late in the playoffs on Thibodeau's side. Okay, we're going to bring in DeLon Wright and Landry Shamet and some of these guys. And Shamet's back. They have brought in some other guys. They brought in Jordan Clarkson. They brought in Yabusele, and they have Malcolm Brogdon in on a non-guaranteed contract here. So feels like they want to go. I know Brown says something about like 9.5 deep is the way he's kind of putting it, and I think that's the sense here. Like, how do you feel this bench will shake out? I know there's also rumblings that they want to find a way to keep both Brogdon and Shamit, which is going to be hard to do unless you're moving on from one of the younger players.
Yeah, so all indications have been that Brogdon and Shamit will both make the final roster. Jake Fisher recently had some reporting that it might be Garrison Matthews instead of Landry Shamit. To me, and I believe Jake's reporting 100%. He's good at what he does. I would think that that's like there are some decision makers within the Knicks organization that would prefer Matthews to Shamit. I don't know if there's actually already a consensus on what's more likely for the team to do. But I do get the sense that one of the players on the younger side, particularly one of the four incoming second year players, would be who is on the trading block or who they're willing to move. I know Deuce McBride's name has come up a lot. Um, I think that's pretty much the result of like bad communication. I think like reporters are talking to teams that have spoken with the Knicks about potential trades, and those teams have been like, yeah, we were most interested in McBride. And then the reports have been like the Knicks would get the most back for McBride. And then people take those reports, and this is not any of the reporters' fault. This is just people, kind of en masse drawing their own conclusions, which is what you should do. But like, people have connected the dots to make it out to be like, oh, the Knicks are going to trade the young player that nets them the most in return. When in reality, all they're trying to do is clear a roster spot. So like, yeah, if you only have, I don't know, I'm trying to come up with an analogy here. Like if you only have three stuffed animals that you keep around, right? And you need to make room for another stuffed animal, would you sell your favorite because it would get you the most, or would you just kind of cut bait with your least favorite of the three stuffed animals to bring in the new, like whatever it is, whatever the example is. Um, there's not there was never any reporting that the Knicks are going to try and optimize the trade package at all costs. The reporting has been that Kolek, Dadier, McBride, the three names that have come up the most with regard to the Knicks might move this guy in part to create a roster spot.
Yeah, I think that makes some sense here because I feel like if you're trying to make some sort of significant improvement later on, McBride's probably the thing that will get you the most in terms of asset wise. Like I feel like the debate has been between Dadier and Kolek, whereas Dadier I feel like has more value than Kolek, but he's the kind of young player that if you guys promise it, okay, like keep him around, develop him, and let him work. Whereas Kolek, you kind of wonder like it's not really working out. He's an older prospect. Like he's blocked by several guys. Like you wonder, okay, is this guy you just, maybe wave and try and get him onto like your G League team or something like that. I can see that being the way they go.
Yeah, I mean, like if Matthews ends up in Westchester, I could really, really see that. Like I could also see another team being like, "Oh, cool, you shook loose, and now we have a chance to bring you in." So, I don't think Matthews or his camp knows exactly what's going to happen. At least I wouldn't think this early on. So, like the Knicks, these non-guaranteed deals for the Knicks are smart for them, but also they're not fully smart or they're not as smart as possible unless they let them be smart. And what I mean by that is Malcolm Brogdon, for example, has a history of being seen by fans as injury prone because of the amount of games that he can tend to miss in a season. Um, but let's get away from that. Let's not play into narratives, right? Shamit and Matthews are both on non-guaranteed deals. They're essentially competing for the same roster spot, given that Mike Brown seems to like what Malcolm Brogdon brings to the table. And if it was going to only be one player, even though positionally Shamit or Matthews would make more sense, it seems like they think Brogdon's the best out of the three, that they should just figure out a way to make things work with McBride, Clarkson, and Brogdon all being options in that second unit. Um, let's say Shamit unfortunately gets hurt like he did last year in preseason. Uh, there's no consequence if the Knicks just waive him. So that's kind of the point is like maybe it will end up being Matthews because of something no one planned for. Maybe it's Shamit and Matthews because something happens with Brogdon. Like I don't know, and I'm not trying to speak any of it into existence. Trust me. I'm just pointing out that the Knicks have have wedged something in the door.
Yes.
And they did that for a reason. And they're not going to take it out and let the door close before someone says that door better be opened or it better be closed. Right now, they're getting away with both. So why not keep doing it until you have to do something different?
Yeah, I would agree with that here. Obviously, I want to talk about the report that came out on the morning recording here with the Knicks that Shams Charania dropped the bomb this morning that like the only team to talk to Milwaukee about a potential Giannis trade was the Knicks, and the talks did not really go anywhere. But it is notable that Giannis was willing to come to New York. Basically, that was the only team he would allow to entertain trade discussions here. I know Giannis has since gone to Bucks camp. He said he likes the addition of Miles Turner. He feels like they're in a good spot. I do think it's interesting that like he is interested in the Knicks, but at the same time, I just don't see what the package would be that could entice Milwaukee to send him here. Milwaukee shut it down, saying like this is not good enough. And considering the Knicks' assets, I don't think it happens unless Giannis basically says, "I'm not playing for you anymore. You send me here or else."
This is a next summer thing at the earliest. Actually,
Maybe February.
this is the day of the deadline thing at the earliest. Literally, because Mikal Bridges' extension and the 6 month no trade period that comes as part of that expires the day before the trade deadline. So the earliest the Knicks can even have any conversations about this would be then. You would think that given both that Karl Anthony Towns seems to be someone the Knicks really are high on and really see as a big part of what they're building, and that as Giannis Antetokounmpo continues to age, as we all do, one day at a time, I think is still the going rate. Like moving to center might be his career extending move, right? Like that could be in an NBA where everyone's so obsessed with shooting, having a center that can shoot in the mid range, that can defend, rebound, score at an elite rate. Like Towns and Giannis in the front court might be the perfect front court to complement each other's weaknesses. Oh, Giannis isn't a great three-point shooter. Watch this. This guy's 7 feet tall and he can do that. Oh, Cat's not a great defender. Watch this. This guy's 7 feet tall and he can do that. It makes you think that Anunoby or Bridges would be the center of the discussions. I think like Bridges and Hart's salaries would work. I'm not 100% sure about that. I'm speaking a little bit uh, out of just imagination here, because I was so sure that this was not something that was going to be happening this summer that I never actually looked into the math. I guess I'm still right that it's not happening this summer, but I now realize I should have looked into that math. That said, I think Bridges and Hart would work. I think, just like Towns and McBride would work. I can't see them wanting to go that direction or Towns and someone else. Yeah, so Bridges or Anunoby, maybe even, you know, one of the two, not both. But because I'm trying to think, is there a way where they try and get off of Kuzma's deal by taking two Knicks with big salaries? But I don't think the
Nope.
Knicks would want that at all. So yeah, no, I never mind. But like this is a next summer thing. This is a maybe trade deadline, probably not thing. And it's a next summer thing. That the reporting, and this is what I kind of almost want to get out in front of, is like a lot of people are taking away that because the Knicks traded for Mikal Bridges, they couldn't trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Go ahead, rake them over the coals for that. I know what the headlines would have been if the Knicks did not extend Mikal Bridges because of a chance that Giannis Antetokounmpo may have become available in a trade, and a smaller chance that he may have only wanted to go to the Knicks. I think this is Giannis's team sowing the seeds for an ask out to New York next summer, but it also is super non-committal. They don't need to do anything. He could ask to go to Utah. He could ask to go to Dallas. He could ask to go to Boston. He'll get to go where he wants to go. They'll make it work. They'll figure it out, right? So that other team will make something happen. It does seem though like the Knicks have built up enough of an impressive organization inside and out to have earned this status of that's the only team he would have wanted to go to. Let's start sowing these seeds now for next summer.
Yeah, I think that makes some sense. The thing I feel like with this is like, I just look at the asset pool Knicks gave up basically for the Bridges and Towns trades. I mean, I don't think they can trade a first round pick by itself to like 2033, if I remember correctly. They can only offer swaps. I feel like there's a scenario here like if you're doing Giannis, you're gonna have to do multiple team trades. You got to spin off other assets to get assets to satisfy Milwaukee to get them to just give Giannis their apart from Giannis just putting his foot down, insisting he goes. Like that's the only way I can see it. Because otherwise, I don't think the Knicks, asset wise, in the cupboard have enough to really make a Giannis trade work.
It's just they just can't. They can't. Like the way the rules work with picks and Stepien rule and everything, like they don't have the offer right now. And I think that's more what Shams was getting at. I think Shams was trying to say, hey, the reality of the situation is that um well, the reality of the situation is that their assets were depleted. He wasn't saying a trade couldn't happen. I think he was more so saying the Knicks would have needed to offer everything they had, and
In other words,
they didn't do that.
the Carmelo 2.0 trade, basically.
It I can't help but think the Knicks would give up everything they have if it landed them Giannis alongside Brunson and Towns and whoever else. But like it's clear that I mean, they whether they did or didn't, it doesn't really matter because the Bucks were never going to take that deal, knowing that they just again, if you waive and stretch Damian Lillard to sign Miles Turner, you're not trading Giannis in that same offseason. Even if you decide, we shouldn't have done that and we should just trade Giannis, you wait a summer. You're going to get the same caliber of trade package in return, and you won't be making a risky decision to go in a certain direction to then immediately abandon that direction, shove it to the side, and go the exact opposite way. So I can't shake the feeling that the Bucks are seeing this through for the entire season, whether you like it or not, because they already don't like it, and they kind of need to hope that it goes better than they're expecting. That way, they can sell high on some guys. They can trade Giannis and actually be set to take 1 or 2 years of rebuilding before coming back full force with a full litany of draft picks and cap space and promising young talent and all of that.
Yeah, for sure. My last question here is also like we're sitting here in a spot where like the East sort of crumbled around the Knicks this offseason. Obviously, Boston loses Tatum in the playoffs, and they decide we're going to reset our luxury tax bills, ship out Porzingis. They ship out guys. They let Al Horford walk. The Pacers lose Halliburton and basically are in a kind of reload year. The Bucks we've talked about ad nauseum. We had teams trying like Orlando with Desmond Bane. The Cavs kept their group together here. But to me, like I feel like this is a spot where if you're the Knicks, you're sitting here like if we are not at least in the Eastern Conference Finals with everyone healthy, this is a disappointing result for us.
Yeah, especially because they just made the conference finals and then fired the coach. It feels like it's not unfair to have the expectation to be at least to make it back to that same point. But you never really know how playoff brackets are going to work out. You never know if the Knicks are going to catch a team in the second round that just has their number. Maybe it's the Cavs, right? Maybe that's how the seeding works out. And one of the Cavs or the Knicks has to be a second round exit because they're playing each other. I don't know that either team would consider the year a complete abject failure because they lost to the other top two team in the right. So like I can't imagine a world where the Knicks like make it to the second round and lose in seven and are like, we need to blow it all up. I just don't think that's anything remotely possible. But I do acknowledge, like, from the fan base's perspective, especially after the changes they made after last season, at least doing it again, getting that same level of success doesn't really feel like an unfair baseline. I think it's all just situational. You got to see how it plays out with seeding. There's kind of no point in predicting how far in the playoffs a team will go until you know who they're playing. If I had to, I'd say, yeah, I think the Knicks make it back to the conference finals. Um, Maybe it's a matchup against Cleveland. Maybe they win the conference finals and then get decimated by the Nuggets or Thunder. But I think they're going to have a good season. I think they're going to be a good team. And I think that they're objectively building now and still somehow for the future because this Giannis Antetokounmpo headline is already having some people look ahead to next offseason as, oh, they might get even better. That sets up another year, not of house money, but like, hey, guys on the Knicks, you don't want to get traded to Milwaukee? Go prove it right now. You got 82 games and then the playoffs to go prove it. And I don't think that's the attitude the Knicks want their players to have, is that they're playing for their New York residency. But pressure and expectations are always really heavy in New York City sports. Um, we know this. That said, sometimes it's easy to be like, oh, there's pressure, and just kind of block it all out. Um, this could be something that, inspires some guys this season to play their butts off even more than they were already planning on. But I just again, it's a next summer thing, and I think where the Knicks stand right now, they're a very good team that seems to have a good approach planned for this upcoming season that hopefully by the time they're playing game 60, hopefully for them, they're comfortable with and confident in what they're doing going into the postseason instead of feeling like, we might need to play a guy in crunch time who we acquired at the deadline and played 240 regular season minutes in Delon Wright, right? Like, Wright and Shamit were like integral playoff pieces for the Knicks. They were not regular season pieces for the Knicks. Shamit, because of injury, before he worked his way back. Delon Wright, because there was, no room in the rotation. They prioritized Cameron Payne. And then push came to shove, and they were like, Cameron Payne, you might never play again for this team. Those decisions can't be getting made in the playoffs. You need that data before you go into the postseason to decide how to optimize your postseason. I think the Knicks feel like they have a coach who's going to get them that data.
Yeah, I think as much as you say, I agree with your point about how the window's still open here. I think like this year still needs to be like the number one priority here because obviously without you have put in the pot and the fact that next year you figure you're getting Boston, Indiana being bigger threats because they're gonna have their guys back. Boston could dip under the tax this year and then become a much more attractive asset for somebody like a Giannis. Say, oh, the Celtics have ability to do more moves around me. I could do this. So I think like this is still like the you can get to a final and like even if you lose, that's still something you have not done since '99.
Yeah, yeah. And I always try and stay away from if the bar is underneath the floor, raising it or getting over it shouldn't be an accomplishment. Um, but you're right. Like that getting to the finals would be a step forward from last season, leaving one step to make, which is winning the championship. I don't know, and maybe someone has the stat in their head or something that's listening, but how many like repeat champions have we had in the NBA recently? It's been a different champion every year, right? So like it's clear that to win a championship, you don't need to have already won a championship. Teams are breaking through and winning one, and then another team is winning one the next year. I think we've had 7 straight seasons with different champions than the year before. Um, Definitely like Raptors, Lakers, Bucks, Nuggets, right? Like Celtics, Warriors I missed in there. And most recently Thunder. Like that's at least 6. I want to say 2018 was, oh no, that was the Warriors. So never mind. 6 straight years of different champions, whatever. You get my point. Is that like the Knicks made it to the conference finals this last year. That could be what propels them to a championship run this year is they got close. They created pressure around the quarterback, and now they're going to get through and make the sack. So yeah, I think this team has championship potential. But it also does feel like they're missing a piece with regard to like the bench is better. They really need to get more than the sum of the roster's parts to be a championship level team, but so do a lot of other teams. So, I don't think that should scare them. I think they should go all out like they have been, and they've kind of intentionally not gone all in. Like a trade deadline where your only move is swapping out Jericho Sims for Delon Wright. That's not an all-in team to me. That's a team that's still trying to make the most of the future. And I've reported and I've said and I've talked about how the Knicks went into last season not viewing it as the start of their championship window. They understood that they made a huge trade the day before Media Day. They understood that they made a huge trade earlier in the summer for Bridges. They understood that the depth was not necessarily there for a championship run, and that team still ended up in the last four standing. So, is a better bench unit enough to push them to the end? Will they stay healthy through the season? All of these things are unknown, but they're about to figure it out. They've put themselves in position to find out. That I think is the biggest thing about moving on from Thibodeau was you were never putting yourself in position to find out something new. It was this lineup doesn't work, this one does. We play the one that doesn't work a lot more. Are we going to have enough in the tank to beat this team? Hopefully. That approach has been changed, and it was a needed approach for years. I always say, he gave organization to an organization that had none. But now it's time for a ceiling raiser, not a floor raiser, and I think that's why you saw this shift to Mike Brown.
Yeah, I think that's interesting to see how this all plays out. Kris, thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it. People want to follow on social media, keep up with all of your NBA coverage. How can I do that?
Yeah, 100%. They can look up my name. Um, it's the one benefit of having my name is no one else has it, so it's easy to find me if you just Google my name. But also you can go to clutchpoints.com or YouTube or anything and look me up there too. You know, all things NBA from A to Z is my NBA wide podcast. I'm also joining Locked On Knicks this upcoming season as a two times a week co-host of the show. So alongside Gavin and XJ, which maybe I shouldn't have said. Actually, no, we'll announce it like today, so never mind. But that said,
This podcast's coming out a week after record, so it'll be in the atmosphere.
there we go, there we go. So alongside Gavin and XJ, who you've seen online, have been announced as co-hosts. I'm excited to join the team and bring you guys daily Knicks coverage there as well.